Okay, welcome to the second video of this color wheel project. We made this in the last video, last week for homework, and this is our color wheel. And now we are going to paint it. So we're going to stretch it down to our board, sort of like we always do, but to conserve paper, I gave you half a sheet of paper, but then to make this as big as possible, I made it go all the way to the edge here and here. So we're going to stretch on two sides, and eventually we're going to cut this out. So we're not really worried about what the edges look like, but we want it to go back to flat, and we don't want it to move around while we're trying to paint it. So we're going to do something like this in order to tape it down. Okay, so normally I would tell you to set up your palette in a row of colors. But today, for the first time of setting up a color palette, I'm actually going to have you do it in the same arrangement as we're going to make the colors on the actual piece of paper. So this is going to be a little bit different than how you would normally set up a palette, but it's going to help us make sense moving, you know, from here to here so we can keep track of our colors. So we're making a little bit of an exception. And I might be out of blue paint. Nope, I'm not. And so you don't need a ton of paint. We're going to mix quite a few colors. My paint doesn't want to come out. Okay, this is towards the end of this blue, so. Okay, there's my yellow. So I'm going to set this up just like the color wheel that I'm going to paint, and that's going to help me keep track of where I am. Now, a color wheel is basically a color spectrum that has been turned into a circle. And we have primary, secondary, and tertiary colors on here. So we have 12 slices. So it works like a clock. And this slice at the very top, we're going to paint red. Now the primary colors we cannot mix, as you know, and there are 3, and that's what we have here in our palette. And so I'm going to use a flat brush, and I'm going to make a nice neat edge using the edge and front of my flat brush. And I'm not sure if the color, if the brush that I have is exactly like yours, but it should work the same way. And if you feel that your brush is not in good enough shape because maybe it's starting to fray, then replace your brush, because it would be better to pay $10 for a new brush or whatever it would cost than spend an extra half an hour trying to fight with a bad brush to get a straight line. Okay. So I'm going to rinse this out. And then I'm going to skip 3 spaces. And I'm going to paint this one yellow. And yellow is my weakest color, and I'm not going to really be able to cover over anything with yellow. I have a little bit of a smudge on my paper, and if I thought I needed to cover that up, I could paint it white and then yellow, which maybe I'll do that again when I get white out, but I'm assuming you don't have a smudge, and I don't want to take your time to do that in this video, so we're gonna march on here. Then we're gonna skip 3 spots again and do blue. And then we have the 3 primary colors in here, and we have enough room for our secondary and tertiary colors, and we have even spacing all the way around. we can turn this color wheel any way we want and it still works, but I always picture red at the top. I teach a lot of color wheels with kindergarten, first grade, sixth grade, fifth grade. So it's just easier for me if I kind of have a method of putting the colors on in the same space every time. And so I'm imposing on that on you here, but there's nothing technically necessary about putting red at the top. That's just how I picture it. I always picture red at the top, blue to the left, and yellow to the right. And then I'm never confused when I'm teaching. Okay, so first we're just going to do this basic middle circle. And we want to make our secondary colors. So we want a good balance between red and orange. And I want to mix more than I need for here, because I'm going to use this orange to make this color, this color, this color, and this color. And really this color and this color. So let's see, how many is that? I need enough orange that I can use it to mix with other colors for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, plus the orange itself. So I'm going to mix a fair amount of this, and I'm going to mix it in between the red and the yellow so that it's clear to me where we are. And if I feel confused later on, this is going to help me reorient my placement here. So again, to use your palette knife, you're going to swish these together and then pick it up into a pile and lay it down again. And you're going to need to change directions a little bit. And then when I'm all done, pretty happy with this as a medium orange. If you feel that your orange is too red or too yellow to be mid-range of orange, because I want it to try to be exactly what you would picture orange between these two, then add the opposite color. So if it's too red, add yellow. If it's too yellow, add red. I'm going to swatch this on here. I'm just going to put it down. I'm pretty happy with this orange. So I'm going to paint it in here. But I am going to go back and end up using like quite a bit of this, if not needing more. So I'm going to not be upset that I mixed a lot, because I'm going to need it. And again, I'm using the side and the front of my brush to make a nice, neat edge. And this takes a little bit of practice, and with acrylic paint, you can paint over it. The problem with this paint, it's not very expensive and it doesn't cover very well. So to paint over something is not as simple as just painting over something. You're going to have to paint either multiple layers or paint it white first. So neatness the first time is probably the best option. Okay, I'm going to wipe my palette knife so that it's nice and clean, and I'm going to make the next secondary color. Blue is the strongest of these three colors, so I know I'm going to need a lot more yellow than blue in order to make a green. My blue is kind of old and crusty, so I'm going to have to mix extra. Okay, and I'm just picking it up, laying it back down, and I can see that this is a little bit more of a lime green than what I want. I want more of a medium Kelly green. So I was a little too conservative with the blue, so I'm just going to put a little more in here. Okay, that's getting closer. Okay. Am I happy with that? Maybe I'll put a tiny bit more blue. Your blue is probably fresher than mine, so you might not have to mix as much as this. Okay, so I want to concentrate it in the middle of this area. If it's all spread out, then it dries out and it's hard for me to use. So at the end, it's a good idea to just make a little mound of the final color that you've mixed, especially since we're sure we'll go back to it. I got streaks of blue in my green, so I'm going to be careful about the way I paint this. Okay. Now, as these dry, if I feel like they're not even in terms of like some areas are lighter than others, I can always paint another coat on there. We'll see. We'll let things develop a little further here before I make that decision. Okay, blue is slightly stronger than red. I want to have a decent amount of purple, so I'm going to put a fair amount of blue down. Again, notice that I'm always wiping my palette knife in between colors. I know when you first start doing this, it seems like a chore, but really it just helps you so much in terms of having control over your paint. The palette knife cleans so much easier than your brush. And you're able to really know what's here. And it also keeps your actual colors much cleaner. And so it's a good habit to get into. I'm going to add a tiny bit more red here. So the other thing that I'm finding out is that these primary colors make these secondary colors, right? We're familiarizing ourselves with the palette as we're doing this. So the purple that these two colors make is a little bit of a plum purple. Now, if I had a different blue and a different red pigment, then I would get a different purple. But this is what we got. And we're going to be able to hold on to this color wheel throughout the rest of the semester to help us figure out which colors we need to mix and then how they're mixed. So this is going to be a little bit of a cheat sheet. And you're also practicing. Now, because of this video, I'm not going to turn my board. At least I don't think I'm going to turn my board. Let's see how desperate I get. But feel free to turn your board so that you can go in a direction that your hand feels comfortable going. Okay, so we got primary and secondary colors on here. We're moving. This is great. And now we're going to make tertiary colors, which are going to be a mix of your secondary color and the primary color that's directly next to it. Oh, and see, I got purple in there because I didn't wipe my palette knife. Oh no. See what a mess that is? And that purple could get into that green and then I've got a problem. So I don't want that to happen. So what I'm trying to make here is a blue purple, a combination of this primary blue and the secondary purple. Okay, and I'm pretty happy with that. And just to show you how you could do this a different way, I'm going to mix this color next before I actually paint it. So that way you can kind of see if you'd rather mix before and then paint a bunch at once. You can do it that way too. Okay, I want more red because I want this to be a little more different. Okay. Yeah, that's better. I want to feel like the color that I'm mixing is a halfway point between the two colors that are being mixed. And changing directions is helpful. And this is a small area to mix on, but that's okay. I'm just using small strokes with my palette knife. Okay. I'm going to paint these two next. Let me do this one. And the paint might look different on the palette than it does in on the paper. So just be aware of that. So if you need to remix because there's not enough difference between the colors, then you definitely can do that. Okay. Now I'm going to paint this one. And you can see that the color wheel that I've created on the palette is helping me see these color relationships and make the color relationships without like going all over the place. Because then I don't have to keep track of which one is which. I'm going to make this just like how I'm going to paint it. This doesn't work as well in a normal painting usually, because a normal painting has more complicated color relationships in terms of, you know, you're using the same color all over the painting or something. But you could think in terms of this as in terms of like, I'm going to mix my blues in this area, or I'm going to mix my yellows in this area. Because when colors that are too dissimilar to each other get next to each other, they can tend to mix. And then you've got brown. If you have all three primaries somehow, like if you're mixing purple next to yellow, if the purple and the yellow get in with each other, they're going to become very dull very quickly. Okay, I'm going to consider this to be a blue-green. I could make it more turquoise than this. You can make whatever color you want. Am I happy with that? Nope. I'm going to put some more blue in here, actually. Okay, that's a little more turquoise. And again, it would be smart for me to turn my board so that my hand was comfortable going in a certain direction, but I'm not going to do that just because I have this set up for the video. But turning the board would be a perfectly, probably better way to, you know, get a straight line. Okay, now I'm going to mix green and yellow. And again, this green is made with blue, which is the most powerful color of the three. So yellow is by far weaker. So I don't want to use a lot of green because that means I have blue in it. Okay, and I'm pretty happy that this is a yellow-green. This is substantially yellower than this, and this is substantially greener than this. So I'm going to paint this one right here. And because this is made with yellow, it's fairly transparent. Okay. I've got two more basic colors I'm going to make. I need to make yellow orange and red orange. And I want to be conservative about how much red I'm using because I know that, or I'm sorry, about how much orange I'm using because I know that the yellow is much weaker than the red and the orange has red in it. So when I'm putting orange into this color, I'm essentially putting red in with the yellow. Okay, and there's my yellow orange. And now I'm going to make an orange red. Okay, I'm happy enough with this. Okay, again, right here under normal circumstances, I would turn my board. So now I have all these colors, and I still have them over here on my palette. So I can use them again to mix these colors and these colors. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do, these I'm going to mix a tiny bit of black with each of these, like a tiny bit, because the black has an undertone. We have such a limited palette of just 3 primary colors and black and white that we need to be able to use black as a color. So it has a little bit of an undertone, and we're going to try to figure out what it's going to do when we mix it with these, but we want the black to be really subtle, so we're not going to use very much. For these center ones, we're going to mix the complement. So whatever is across from the color that we see that we're trying to fill the slice in for, we're going to mix a little bit of that. And I might have too much of this blue violet because, again, all these have blue, all these have red, and the yellow is very weak. So any of these colors that have yellow in them are going to be weaker. So I'm going to see what I can make and make this kind of pea green color. Now this might be really useful. We're going to do a long series of landscape paintings. So this is going to be helpful, very helpful for me to know that if I mix essentially a blue purple with yellow, that I get this green color. And I'm going to put that in here. And it looks a little bit different on the paper than it did on my palette, which is also good to know. Okay. Now I'm going to do the one opposite. And let me clean this. If you want to do the logic of what you're mixing, so we want to mix a little bit of this one with this one to see what it's going to do over here. I could use this because this is this color with this a little bit and add more of this, and then I could end up with the color that I'm trying to mix. Because I just want to see what this is going to do. I'm experimenting again with the palette. I want a good amount of yellow because I know that this blue purple is going to overpower it, but I want it to be a blue purple color. So let's see how it goes. All right, so that's a substantially different color than the one that we made on the other side. This is a really deep green. Uh-oh. I have too much water. I might have to remix this color. Let's see. Yeah. I had too much water on my brush, and so I diluted the color too much, and I had only mixed a little bit of it. This is the only time we're gonna use these colors that we're doing in the middle. So we need to preserve our main circle of colors, but we do not have to preserve the other ones. And I just didn't mix enough to handle that much water. Okay, and if you have a bigger palette, you know, feel free to make this circle as big as you want, or you can mix another circle somewhere else if this seems too cramped for you. And we can also scrape off some areas. Okay, so this is going to show me a whole range of colors. Now I can do this a little bit differently. I can add less of the opposite color and make this more of an orange and this one more of a purple, but I'm just gonna be happy to see what greens I can make. So it's up to you. What colors do you want to push these towards? Let's see, just to experiment. My paint's drying out here. That's not really helpful, but so here's a color that's more, what would we say? Like more gray than green. My brush wants to split apart. Okay, but that gives you an idea. Oh, anything here, you know, in the range between these two is okay. Okay, the next one I'm gonna do, I'm actually gonna choose this based on which colors seem like they're gonna dry out the fastest. I wanna make sure that my palette knife is clean so that I across from it. So I want this purple, and I'm gonna take some of this and move it into the middle and try not to get this color. And then what do I need to go across from? I need yellow. So I'm gonna take a good amount of yellow because I know the yellow is gonna be weak. Okay. Sort of a medium brown. Similar, maybe not that similar to the handle on my palette knife. And I could make this more purple if I wanted to. But I'm trying to figure out what is the range of color that I can achieve just with these three. Okay. And we're going to be painting landscapes, so I am interested in brown and green. All right, now let's do this one. Which one am I doing? Wait, did I mess up? Purple across from yellow. Okay, purple and yellow. Yeah, I used this color. And I should have just used this one. Okay, so I have to remix this color. I'm sorry, I messed up. Okay, so let's do purple, a little bit of purple and a lot of yellow. Because purple and yellow are across from each other. Okay, so you can see how it's easy to get confused. Okay, now this color is pretty similar to the one that I already made, so I'm gonna add some more yellow just to make it more different. There's no use painting a bunch of colors that are the same on here. Okay, that's better. Okay. Okay, sorry about that, guys, that I messed up. Okay, we're gonna paint over this one. I'll cut the part of the video out that has the wrong color combination. Okay. And then, did I mix? Okay, I want to mix the plum purple with yellow by itself. So I'm going to move this out of the way. Okay, let's put a little bit of yellow here and some purple. Okay, this is slightly different than what I had before. It's all red, yellow, and blue, but I want to try to understand the proportions by doing this accurately. Okay, and by the way, I am on my third half sheet of paper towel for wiping out, wiping my palette knife and my brush. Okay, so now let me get this out of here. I'm gonna scrape my palette. This is how I can make room if I'm sure I'm finished with a color, and that one I don't want to use. So I'm gonna take a little bit of this red purple and some of this green yellow. Okay, and that's a nice color. A nice red brown, and we'll put that one in here. And you can see my brush is kind of splitting. That means pretty much it needs to be replaced. Which is why it's a good idea to take care of your brushes. This one's been taken care of just fine. It's just that inexpensive brushes don't last forever. Expensive brushes don't last forever. But clean them out really well, store them so that they're not getting bent, and then, you know, they're just going to naturally kind of deteriorate over time and use. Okay, I'm running out of yellow green here, but I have a little bit. So I'm going to take what's left, put it over here, and then take this red, purple, maybe I don't want that much. Yeah, I like these reddy colors that are made with this green. That's quite nice, actually. I'm gonna mix some more green, some more yellow green, and I'm gonna mix it from the blue because I don't have very much green. So I know that this is a lot of yellow and a little bit of green, because I'm gonna need this for the outside, and I need to mix it again on the inside. And I'm going to try to remix what I had. And I can see what I had because it's right here on my color wheel. Okay. There's also some left on my palette. Okay. Okay, I'm happy enough with this. So I want to mix this. Okay, I already, well, I'm going to add just a little bit more of this to this reddish color and see what happens. I can always go back the opposite way, but I want this to be different enough. But then it just turns brown. I like the other color better. So I'll add some red back in. Is that different enough? Okay, that's the one I want. Just because this is the color I like. Okay. I'm halfway done these center ones. So I'm gonna do red. And then the opposite of red is my green. Maybe I don't want that much green. Okay. And I'm gonna mix these together. And this makes sort of a maroon red. And again, turning my board would be appropriate here. Okay, so if I mix a little bit of red with green, okay. Orange. Got orange all over the place here. I'm gonna have to mix some more orange for the next part, maybe. Well, let's see. Maybe I can preserve half of it over there so that I don't have to do that. And then across from orange is plain blue. And I just want to take a tiny bit of this because I know that this blue is really powerful compared to this orange because the orange has yellow in it and the blue obviously doesn't. Okay, so I've made a nice color here. I think I have too much water on my brush. And we'll put this right in here. And if I have mostly blue, move my blue over actually. And I have a little bit of orange. I can lower the intensity of my blue just a little bit and get this nice green, which is similar to this green. And that happened a little bit over here with the red and the purple. Okay. And we got two more, almost done. And I think then we'll feel like we've really gotten closer to the end. Okay, so I want to take my red orange, which I don't have quite enough of. And I'm going to mix the teeniest, tiniest turquoise in here. I'm going to take all of this actually. Okay, I got some red in here that I don't really want. Okay. So I'm going to paint with this and then get rid of this spot because I don't want to get confused. Okay. There we go. And then I need some of this red orange. And I'm going to put it right here. And get this turquoise. Just mix them together. Oh. I think my red orange is a little bit dried up, so I'm gonna mix some more. Stick into my palette knife and won't get up, so. Okay, red. And yellow. And again, I'm going to try to mix the same color that I had. Not quite. I need more red. Okay, I'm happier with that. So I take a little bit of this. And I put it over here with the turquoise. Here we go. And my last one. And now I have this nice range of greens and browns that I can draw from when we get ready to do landscape paintings, which is great. Okay, I'm on my fourth half paper towel. Okay, so this will be, I think, a little simpler because we're just going to mix all of these basic colors that we have in the middle with black. So I'm going to put some black over here, and I only want to mix it with the teeniest bit of black, so we'll see how this goes because I want to retain the color that I have. I just don't want like a black tint. Okay, so if I'll start with this one because I have a lot of it, and then I might need to decide based on colors that are drying out. So I'm going to take the teeniest, tiniest little bit of black. Okay, let's see what happens. This might be too much. Which means I'll have to mix this color again, but no, this is okay. I still have an orange color. You see that? There we go. And I'm going to put this above the red orange. My turquoise is drying up. Some of these are drying up actually. Okay, but the turquoise I still have, I think, the ability to use if I mix it with a wetter color. So I'm gonna do this one next. I think I'm gonna have to remix this blue purple. Okay, I only want a little bit of black because I just want to change the color slightly. I don't want to turn this color into a black. Okay, is that different? I don't know. I don't know if it's different or not. I'm gonna remix it. All right, that's different. Yeah, that's a different color than what I originally had. You can see the difference between those two. And so if I had a seascape, this darker color might be really useful to me. I'm going to try to make a straight line. Okay. Okay, let's go to this one next. I have a little bit left. I'm gonna have to mix that one again too. Let's see. Let me go to one that I don't have to remix. And your situation is probably going to be different than mine depending on how much you mixed of each one and in what order. Okay, so I'm going to mix some black with this. I don't want too much because I don't want to turn it black. I just want to change the color of the red purple. Okay. So this is different. Let me see if it's different enough. Is it different? Yeah. Okay. I will not need to remix this purple if I use it. And I'm kind of moving it over so I can see the original color because I want to be able to make a comparison between them right here on the palette. Like, is that different enough? I'm going to mix some more black in. One's gonna go right here. And again, moving my board would be a great idea. But because I'm set up for a video, I don't want to do that. But you should, because that could help the angle of your hand and your paintbrush to be more effective here. Okay. And again, I'm being careful every time I paint because I don't want to have to paint over something else because it might not cover very well. So it's better if I'm just clean about my painting the first time. This color I'm going to have to remix. These two are primaries. This one I'm going to have to remix, but this yellow green is fine to use. And the orange I'm going to have to remix. Okay, so I'm going to take some of this and put it over here and get a tiny bit of black. And we'll see what happens. Oh yeah, that changes the color. Can I add a little bit more? We'll see. Just the tiniest bit. Again, I want it even, so I'm changing direction so that marbleization that happens before the colors are completely mixed. I'm just always working against that by going perpendicular. Okay. Okay, my water's pretty dirty at this point, so changing it would not be a bad idea. I'm gonna keep going because I don't want to stop this video. So, okay, let's do yellow because I don't have to remix that one. And we'll see what happens when we just mix yellow and black. I might have too much black. Let's see. Yeah, that's probably enough. And I get a slightly different green color. Kind of similar to this original color. It's interesting how we keep ending up with these diagonal relationships between colors. Okay. So I've turned the yellow into green by mixing it with black. And it's a little bit different than this one. It's warmer. And a little more brown than my original yellow-green. Okay. We're getting close. And We're making a lot of different colors and we're becoming more familiar with the palette, and we're getting practice both in painting, applying the paint with the brush, and also mixing with our palette knife. So all of these things are helpful to us. Okay, I'm gonna just mix this black and blue, and my blue is kind of gross. It needs to be replaced. Well, I actually like this color. It's like blueberry. And if you think this is too black, then just add more blue. Anything in the range between black and blue is fine, as long as it's not completely black. There's no use in mixing black for most things, so. And again, I would turn my board. Since I'm not turning my board, I don't know if you can tell in the video, but I'm holding the end of the paintbrush with the opposite hand because that helps give me a little bit of control because I have one hand working against the other one to hold it steady. Okay. So I got my blueberry blue. And now I've got to remix these other colors. Oh, no, I can do red. I can do red, and then I'm down to 4. So let me wipe off my palette knife. And I'm going to do a lot of red because I don't, well, I do need red to mix these other colors, but that's okay. We're going to, okay, and just mix a little bit of black because I don't want to mix like a reddish black. I want to see if I can get another kind of color. And as we mix these colors on the palette, they're just so beautiful and luscious, and we encounter one of the challenges of the artist. How do you make the paint look better in your painting than it already did on your palette? Like when you squeeze out fresh new paint, it's so beautiful. And how do you make it into something even better than that? I think it's challenging to do so. Okay, so that's a substantially different red. This one's a little slightly washed out. Like if I painted this again, just to make it a little brighter, that would give you a better idea of the contrast. So I'm going to do that real quick. Okay, you see that? And the red we have is like, I'm not sure. I think it might be called primary red. The one I have is called something else. Okay, let's mix orange. I'm going to take the rest of this red and then a good amount of yellow, because I'm trying to mix regular orange, medium secondary orange, which I think I have here. This looks pretty similar to that actually. But I've got to turn this into two things. I've got to turn it into the regular orange that I'm going to mix with black, but also the orange yellow color. Maybe I took too much of the orange with me. Yeah. Now I wouldn't have to get more yellow out probably if I hadn't taken so much of that, which was lack of foresight. Okay. The edge of my palette's curling up a little bit. So, sorry about that bouncing. So I'm going to take part of this. I'm still not happy. I want it to be more yellow. Okay, that's pretty good. So then I'm going to mix this with black and mix that with black. And this is going to turn into yet a different green. Okay. And then I want to mix black with my secondary orange. Nope, that's the wrong one. This one. All right, that's a very useful brown. Worried about her Bible. Okay. And if we mix some green one more time, and you might have green. You might not need to remix green. Okay, and I could have mixed this with the yellow, the blueberry, dark blue. I didn't because I didn't want to confuse you in case you couldn't follow that, but that would already have the black in it. So we would be combining black and blue and yellow. But then we couldn't really check if we had this medium green, and we don't. So I'm going to add a tiny bit more blue. Okay, that's pretty close. And then we're going to just mix a little bit of black in here. I can always add more black, but I can't take it out. So I'm remixing all over again if I put too much black in. So this green is going to go here. And then one more. We're almost finished. Congratulations, everybody. And again, you don't have to do these in this order. You should do the center first, but you could do, you know, purple before red. It doesn't really matter. Okay, I need a tiny bit more red just to make this clear. Okay. Just gonna use that much, and I still have some blue here. We're gonna see if I can make this work. And we're remixing this color. So this is blue, purple. So I want it to be mostly blue with a little bit of purple. And that's pretty much it. And this is already a dark color. We're gonna add a tiny bit of black. See what happens. I'm not sure this one's gonna change a lot. Add a tiny bit more. Yeah, okay. I don't have quite enough pigment on here. Make the shape and then, well, maybe that's not so bad. I know this seems like you're making a simple color wheel, but you're getting lots of experience with just handling the paint. And yeah, so there's the color wheel. And we're going to be able to look at this and use it as a reference for trying to figure out if there are colors similar to here in the paintings that we're looking at. We can figure out which ones we want to mix. There are other things we can do. We can mix blacks and grays and stuff like that, but I think that we're gonna be able to remember that from what we're learning about in class. And this gives us a really good idea of what our capacity is with this color wheel. The other thing that we can do is add white to all the colors, for example, but I'm happy with this. I'm happy with this range. So thanks for joining me, and I will see you next time.